The senator from Texas back in our state once again this morning in Kalamazoo for a big rally, and he's on our line right now. How are you?
Frank, good morning. It's good to be with you.
Good to have you back. I really wonder sometimes why anyone would subject themselves to what you're subjecting yourself to when I hear this kind of stuff over and over and over again.
Well, there's an awful lot of silliness in politics, but I'll tell you, it is also, it's invigorating. You know, we just left a rally in Kalamazoo. We had 700-800 people come out to a rally. The energy there was incredible, and I am both inspired and invigorated because people are really waking up. I mean, our country is in crisis, Frank, and we are losing the foundations of what made America great. We've gotten away from our core principles, the free market principles and free market liberties that built the country, and people are hungry to bring America back, and that I'll tell you is really inspiring to see that energy and enthusiasm in the grassroots.
Is it difficult to set yourself apart from other candidates in bringing that message out, because it is a message that's shared by many seeking the nomination on the GOP side?
Well, look, it's true that an awful lot of the candidates talk the talk on the campaign trail. But the reason that I think our campaign is getting so much incredible momentum on the ground from the grassroots is that people are tired of empty talk. They're tired of campaign conservatives who sound great on the trail but haven't walked the walk. And I think they're looking for a consistent conservative, someone who's been the same yesterday, today, and tomorrow. And that is why, you know, the grassroots energy we're seeing behind our campaign here in Michigan. We've got a phenomenal team here on the ground in Michigan, and all across the country is nothing short of extraordinary, and it's because people are fed up with Washington. They're fed up with politicians who talk a good game, and they want a proven fighter who you know what you're going to get.
Senator Cruz, by my count, this is your third major campaign appearance here in Michigan, right? The third trip here? Yeah. Does Michigan match up better for you? Does it become one of the key states for you? Are you paying more attention to Michigan than you are some of the other early primary states?
Michigan is a very important state in the Republican primary. It's an early March primary. This year, the primary season has been sped up dramatically. So we start with the first four states. We start with Iowa, New Hampshire, South Carolina, and Nevada. Those four are all incredibly important. And in fact, I'll break a little bit of news on your show this morning. Today, we're rolling out that we have county chairmen in all 171 counties, in every one of the counties of Iowa, New Hampshire, South Carolina, and Nevada. We're the only campaign that has a county chairman in every county in the first four states. But then, right after that, boom, you hit the March primaries. You hit Super Tuesday on March 1st, and then you hit Michigan on March 8th. And we are campaigning hard in Michigan to win Michigan. And the team we've got on the ground, we're very, very encouraged by what we have here. You know, this is a state of hard-working men and women who want to believe again in the promise of America. This is a state that introduced the world to Reagan Democrats, and that really is the heart of our base, our supporters, are the working men and women who are getting hammered by the Obama economy, and so we're very encouraged by what we're seeing here in Michigan.
Mm-hmm. The numbers that we see in the polls, when do they become important to you?
You know, the national polls historically at this time of year have historically had little to no importance. They've been terrible predictors of who the nominee was. At this time in the cycle, Rudy Giuliani was leading the national polls. He ended up winning 0 states. And so at this point, what the national polls are all about is whoever the media are talking about. And the media will have a flavor of the month. They'll go from one candidate to another, and they'll talk them up. And what you see is candidates zoom to the top of the polls, but then they plummet just as fast. Our approach is very different. We are playing the long game. We are building a grassroots army. As I mentioned, we rolled out county chairs in every one of the 171 counties in the first 4 states. We've got a national organization, got a leadership team that is very strong here in Michigan. We've got a leadership team all throughout the Super Tuesday states, the March 1st states. And we're also focused on fundraising. I mean, I'll tell you an amazing thing, Frank. Out of all 17 Republican candidates, when the fundraising reports were filed a couple of months ago, the campaign that raised the most hard money was our campaign. Now, that, frankly, is an astonishing result. We raised over $14.3 million in just over 3 months. Second place was Jeb Bush at $11.4 million. If I'd have gone on your radio show 6 months ago and told you we were going to outraise the entire Republican field, including outraising Jeb Bush by $3 million, you'd have said I was off my rocker crazy. But the reason we've done that is to date we've had over 300,000 contributions, people all over the country going to tedcruz.org, contributing, signing up, volunteering. And so our focus is very much building that grassroots foundation, to follow the scriptural principle, building your house on a foundation of rock and not a foundation of sand. And so I feel very encouraged where we are, that what we're seeing is conservatives unifying behind our campaign.
All right. You've talked a lot about the positives of this, and I understand the need for everybody within a campaign to stay on that same page and to feel good about what you're doing. I get that. Has there been one part of this that's been disappointing where you said we just have not captured the imagination of people on this? We didn't perform well enough in the debates. What's been the biggest disappointment for you?
Look, to be perfectly honest, Frank, I have been astonished at how the campaign has gone. The grassroots enthusiasm we're seeing is off the charts. The fundraising, I didn't anticipate that we would outraise the entire field. That exceeded every reasonable expectation. Let me give you an example of grassroots. About 3 weeks ago, Freedom Works, the national grassroots organization, had their national conference down in Florida. Now, Florida's obviously the backyard to two of the candidates, Jeb Bush, Marco Rubio. They had over 2,000 activists there. They had their straw poll. We won that straw poll with 42% of the vote. Second place was 12%. A couple of weeks later, the Value Voters Summit was in Washington. That was about 2,700 activists nationwide, tend to be more evangelical and socially conservative. They had their straw poll. We won the straw poll with 35% of the vote. Second place was 18%. One of the great strengths of our campaign, you look at those two groups, Freedom Work tends to be more libertarian and Tea Party in nature. Value Voters tends to be more evangelical and socially conservative. It is extraordinarily unusual to have that sort of deep base of support across the spectrum of the Republican primary. And, you mentioned the debates. The first debate that we had in Cleveland, in the 100 hours that followed that debate, our campaign raised over $1 million. People all over the country went to tedcruz.org and contributed. The second debate in California, we ended up blowing past that record. We raised $1 million, not in 100 hours, but in 48 hours. And I recognize that coming out of the debates, both debates, the moderators asked me very, very few questions. They did not want to focus on me. The moderators want to focus on the food fight. They want to focus on a bunch of politicians acting like school children and insulting each other. I'm not going to play that game. I don't think the American people are interested in such silliness. I think they're interested in a positive, optimistic vision for this country. That's where my campaign is focused, and it's why I think the support we're getting is built, as I said, on a foundation of rock and not sand.
Senator, can I impose on you to hold on just a moment? I got to do traffic and weather here. I'm late for it, but I have another question for you. Senator Ted Cruz just wrapped up another big rally in Kalamazoo, third visit to the state of Michigan. This is the longest he has ever gone in an interview and not had Donald Trump brought up in a question. But here is my question. I don't want to know about the polls and your reaction to the polls that have Carson jumping to the top now in one poll and all of that. I'm more interested to know in sort of like your surprise level at how this is unfolded. I mean, did you ever believe? in your wildest dreams that it was possible that you would have this kind of landscape to peruse right now with Trump at the top and this feeling that outsiders are really the key rather than those who have served in public office?
Well, sure. Look, this has been a wild and unpredictable race, and that has made it interesting and fun to be a part of. I'll say I like Donald Trump. A lot of the field have gone out of their way to criticize him, to hit him with a 2x4. I've consistently refused to do that. I think he's bold and brash. I'm glad he's running. And I will say this. As you noted, an awful lot of the candidates are running as outsiders. They're running saying they will stand up and fight Washington. I think that's great because it frames the narrative. Sun Tzu said every battle is won before it's fought. It's won by choosing the terrain on which the battle will be fought. The natural next question, if all the candidates are saying they'll stand up and fight Washington, is, okay, what's your record? When have you ever stood up and fought Washington? And Frank, in that regard, my record is markedly different from every single candidate on that stage. I'm the only candidate who has consistently stood up and taken on not only Obama and the Democrats, but leadership in my own party, Republican leadership in the Washington cartel that are refusing to stand for conservative principles. So, I'm glad people say they're outsiders, but, in 2013, when I was leading the fight to stop Obamacare, none of the other Republican candidates standing on that debate stage were anywhere to be found. In 2014, when I was leading the fight against President Obama's unconstitutional executive amnesty, again, none of the candidates on that debate stage were anywhere to be found. And Frank, I'll note, you don't have to go back 2-3 years ago. You can go back to last week. Every candidate on that California debate said that they believed we should defund Planned Parenthood. Well, that's terrific that you say that. We just had a knockdown, drag-out fight in Washington last week. I was leading the fight to end sending taxpayer funds to Planned Parenthood, a private organization caught on film illegally selling the body parts of unborn children. And not a one of those Republican candidates was anywhere to be found. Where were they? I would have welcomed and loved all 11 of those Republican candidates to come to the Capitol, to stand with me, stand up to Mitch McConnell and John Boehner and say, do not send taxpayer funds to Planned Parenthood, and yet every one of them was missing from the fight. And I think the reason our campaign continues to gain support is people recognize talk's cheap. It's easy to say you'll stand up and fight Washington, but if you've never in your life stood up and fought Washington and you're not willing to do so today, then you're sure as heck not going to start doing so in 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue.
All right, I got 30 seconds for two questions together here. Does Mitch McConnell have to go? And number two, who's your running mate if you win?
Well, the first is a question for the Republican conference. I think we need leadership that actually leads and honors the commitment we've made toward the voters. That's what I'm fighting for. And the second question on running mate, it needs to be a strong conservative, someone who is ready to be president from day one. And my commitment for both VP and every cabinet position is they are going to be principled conservatives who will honor the promises that we've made to the men and women who elected us.
Does Trump fit that description?
Well, look, time will tell. I like Donald a lot. I think he's very capable. And time will tell. I think it's premature for a candidate in the midst of the primary to start handing out cabinet jobs to his opponents while the primary is still being fought.
Fair enough. Thanks for being with us. Always good to have you on the show.
All right, take care.
You
Thanks,
too.
Frank.
Senator Ted Cruz.